So question number one, are you enjoying your summer? We like to see where you feel, like where your mindset is at today. Are you taking the time off you need to relax and enjoy things? Or are you having a Goldilocks summer? It's too hot, it's too rainy, and everything is just not quite right. Or are you just desperate for the kids to go back to school? Most people I talk to are kind of sitting in column number 3 and ready for them to go back to school so they can get back into column number 1. Awesome. Well, since we're here to talk about business and how you're doing in your business, let's learn a little bit about each of your businesses. So how many years have you been in business? Did you start like me during the pandemic and just in the last 3 years you've gotten started? Are you pre-pandemic and you survived the last 3 to 5 years? Or maybe you're more established and you've been in business for 5, 10, or maybe even more than 10 years. Oh, awesome. We've got some amazing mentors here in the house. That's so great to see, because then we know how we can best collaborate with each other and we can look for others to help us on our journey. All right, let's see what's next. So what about challenges in your business? What are your biggest challenges? Is it at the beginning of the funnel, actually finding those leads and making sure that they're qualified customers potentially for your business? Is it maybe closing that sale, that you have plenty of people that are interested, but it's finding that right mix to actually get them to buy? Or is it making enough money? Is it getting that revenue stream consistent? Is it maybe some sort of pricing, go-to-market mix? And finally, is it retaining those clients for repeat business, actually nurturing them? Because we all know it's easier to keep a client for repeat business than pay to find another one. Yeah, leads usually seems to be the thing, and we always need lots of those. All right, one last question to get us through. This one is a little bit different. There is a 1 to 5 scale on each of these things, and just a little to see where you guys sit in what you like to do inside your business. So is it maybe being creative and creating social media posts? 1 is, I don't really like doing that. It feels like not a good use of my time. Or 5, I would love to do creative stuff all day long. Maybe it's social, it's networking in large groups like we were talking about in Dallas last night. Maybe you love that, maybe you're an introvert and that's not fun at all. Or maybe you like being behind the scenes in the nitty gritty, the accounting, the legal, the email, and keeping on top of things on that day to day. Or maybe you just really cherish those customer relationships and you like having those one-on-one meetings with clients. I love this one because it gets to pop around as people kind of rank and see where they're at with their different parts of their business. Cool. Well, we got to get to know a little bit about all of you. Today, we're here to talk about Chameleon Mindset and creative ways to embrace change and build mental resilience to transform your career and life. And I hope all of you will join the Chameleon Mindset revolution. So let's get started. And now I will tell you a little bit about myself. Big screen, little Nikki. There we go. And all we need is the slides to move. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nikki Green, and previously I was a pricing strategy expert in Silicon Valley. I worked for many of the top companies and probably products and services that you use at home or in your business every day. I worked in these companies for the last 20 years, and like many people, I decided to do my pandemic pivot during 2020. And as Amy introduced, I am now a life and business resiliency expert. I'm a motivational speaker and a 4-time best-selling author. I have an amazing podcast, Stand Up and Stand Out, and career coach. I just want to thank everyone at Leadership Global as we get started. As you guys see, now 4-time author. I was very fortunate to be a part of the Leadership Global anthology this year, The Great Leadership Awakening. I also interviewed many of the wonderful women on this podcast, including Linda. So if you catch this season, you'll get to know not only a little bit about their chapter, but a little bit behind the scenes. And as Rebecca also mentioned earlier, I also launched my book, Chameleon Mindset, this year. So thank you to all of you who helped me make this a #1 bestseller. It's been a crazy year already. It's hard to believe it's only July, and it's just so great to be now getting out on the road, talking to people about the content of the book and really helping people start to adapt to change. So if you guys haven't done so already, I'll also drop it in the chat, but you can grab my QR code, which is kind of like a link tree, and you can connect with me on whatever makes sense to you. Social media, obviously, if you like giving more money to Amazon, you can grab any copy of the book and listen to the podcast. But I'll go ahead and grab my link, and I will drop it in the chat just in case you don't have your phone handy for the QR code. There we go. Oops. So one of the first questions I always get from people is, so what does a life and business resiliency expert do? Well, I coach people through times of change. What many of you guys know is when I first started my business in the beginning of the pandemic is I was helping young professionals. They were really struggling during the pandemic, not getting that college experience, doing class from home, and then realizing they weren't going to go into an office and drive a nice car and wear cool clothes. They were going to be working in their PJs from their kitchen table. And they became very disillusioned. And so I really started with mentoring young people and helping them figure out that balance in a time of change, which was unexpected for them. And then what happened is a lot of parents came to me as well. And the parents were also struggling. They were struggling with that relationship with their children, but they were also struggling with their own change and adaptation during these difficult times. And you saw one of the things I do is I volunteer for an organization called the Human Library, where people are the books and we have conversations with readers. My topic is victim of bullying. So I do also a lot of work with younger people, schools, and families to talk about bullying in the playground and at schools and helping teachers and parents cope with those difficult issues. And I also talk about bullying in the corporate environment. And so one of the things I've also gotten back to doing is reaching back into my corporate network and really helping people transition as, again, we're through a time of change of going back into the office, of doing hybrid work, and really trying to figure out a best way to collaborate across now 4 generations: Boomers, Gen X, Millennials, and now Gen Z graduating college. So 4 generations of people with very different ideals and very different experiences, all coming together to work together. So how does this help you guys and Chameleon Mindset? So one of the first things I talk about with Chameleon Mindset to sort of ground people in the concept is to compare the zebra and the chameleon. What you see a lot of times today is people on Instagram or any kind of social media platform, and they're saying they're going to be authentic. They're telling you they've got this Instagram perfect life, their kids never fight, dinner's always ready on the table on time, and no one ever has any dirty laundry, right? And their business is going amazing, they're making a ton of money, and they hardly put in any effort, and they're off on yachts. And most of the time, none of that is true. What's really true, and what I'm encouraging people to do in these especially difficult times of change, is how to really be unique, how to really be comfortable with our flaws, and also crushing it no matter what those challenges are that are coming before us. And sometimes that's really difficult. It's difficult to find that vulnerability, especially in this time of social media where we are constantly putting ourselves forward. It's making sure we find that balance of motivating others with positive mindset, but also being honest when we're having challenges ourselves. And so how do we do that? So I love to talk about the chameleon because when I say chameleon, many people get the wrong idea. They think about the chameleon in the way we've often said it about a person. Oh, well, they don't actually know who they are, or they just blend in all the time because they're trying to, get people to like them. And the funny thing is, as I began this business and researching during the pandemic, I read a scientific study that could be nothing further than the truth. It said chameleons are calm and zen and at peace when they're green. When they're in that state, they're sitting on the branch, chilling, enjoying some sunshine, and they're just blending in. You don't really see them because they're in their actual happy habitat. It's when they're flashing their colors, when they are showing you something's not right. I need more food. I need a different temperature. I am trying to attract a mate. I'm trying to detract a predator. And it's this ultimate law of attraction that got me thinking how best we can also attract and detract others around us when we're not happy with our environment. And this is often what we don't do. We often do try to mask what we're feeling, what we're going through. And so people don't know how to help us because we haven't really told them the truth. So it's important to me to continue building out this chameleon mindset with folks so that they can start figuring out the best way to share what they need and move forward. So we are going to work on the very short version of Syllabus for Life today. Normally I do a much longer exercise with this, and we have a new online course if you're interested. But as I started working with young people, I realized that when they go to school, you get a syllabus for every class, and it's very structured. Here's the book to read, here's what chapter you need to know each week, here's the coursework that's due back, here's your exams, step by step by step. Here's how the teacher is going to grade you. And then we shove you out into the real world, and there is no instruction manual. There's no information as to what are the boundaries. When is the test going to be? What is the test even about? And so many people end up lost in this stage of life because we haven't given them the right tools and we're not asking the right questions. And so hopefully you guys have kind of a spare piece of paper, digital, or, real pen and paper, or maybe even make some notes on your phone. This exercise is for you to think about your syllabus for life. So as school's about to start, I thought about this recently, is we are asking the wrong questions. You'll see it in your feeds, right? Is that we put our kids in the perfect outfit with the perfect hair, and we put a little sign in front of them, and we ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do any of us know? I sure as heck didn't know it as a kid, and I don't know in my 40s either. I like to do a lot of things, but is that what I want to be when I grow up? We've taught people to define themselves by their career. And so it's really time for us to start rethinking the questions that we ask, and also just not of our kids, as just us as well. Those of us that are trying to rethink who we are and what we're going through following these challenges of the pandemic. And how do we make sure that we're making a path forward that makes sense for the me I am today and the way I want to live my life tomorrow? So normally I give people 15 minutes for this exercise. We ain't got that kind of time today, but we're going to just kind of talk through these pieces a little bit at a time. And I want you to do this exercise with a stream of consciousness. This isn't, a very long essay. You're not going to get a PhD in life by doing this. This exercise is for you. And so normally we get 15 minutes. We'll do about 60 seconds here. But the first thing you talk about in your college syllabus is your learning objectives. So in your life syllabus, what do you want to learn? What do you want to experience? And I mean this in lots of different ways. Figuratively, like in your career, do you want to be by yourself, like, own your own business? Or do you want to work in a team? Do you like being with other people? Do you want to be an expert in your field? Or do you like trying new things and you want to have maybe different jobs every couple of years? Also personally, like what's important to you? Do you like learning from others? Do you want to have friends that have different interests? Do you want to have a family or partner where you guys maybe go do interesting things together? Do you like kids? Do you like pets? Like, what are those things that you want to have as a part of your life that are important to you? And where do you want this life to take you? Quite literally, where do you want to live? Is there a specific city? Is there a place you want to travel to or maybe explore? And this plan today we're going to do is just sort of a 30-day plan to kind of get you started. And the great thing about this is it's not set in stone. These questions can help you revisit anytime you're coming up with a time of challenge where you need to kind of find a new path forward. All right, so while you guys continue to kind of mull that over in a passive way, I'll share a little bit more about my story and how this syllabus came up to be. So it's always good to share tiny pictures of myself when I was little. Be so cute. Oh my goodness, little tiny Nikki. But I grew up in a very difficult, challenging time, in a time of constant change. I was born to a single mom and we were living on government assistance. And by the age of 10, I had a blended family of 6 parents living across 3 states, California, Nevada, and Colorado. And so that meant I moved 9 times in 12 years leading up to high school. It was a lot. I was constantly the new kid. I was constantly in an environment of change. I didn't even have the same consistent parents and rules as I moved from house to house, season to season, as different life events happened. But despite those things, I did all the next level stuff that was supposed to be done, right? I went to university. I graduated with honors, not only from my undergrad, but also my MBA. I went away to school in Paris. I became a collegiate athlete. And then I married my high school sweetheart, and one of my stepfathers walked me down the aisle. And it seems from this part of the story that, well, everything's just lining up, right? Despite that rocky start, you learned, you grew, and you figured out what was important, and you had a path. But unfortunately, I didn't. I didn't barely have even this figured out. And soon the walls would come tumbling down. So 1 month after I got married, 9/11 happened. And so obviously, economically, globally, all sorts of impacts. Many people today can relate by something like the pandemic. Again, unplanned, and you had a vision of where your life was going to be, and other things completely outside of your control, especially on a global scale like that, just reset what you're supposed to be doing. I graduated in 2001 in the middle of Silicon Valley in the dot-com bubble burst #1. I watched my fellow graduates get laid off repeatedly, some of them several times within the same year. It was so devastating because you think you've done all the things you were told you were supposed to do. I was told, okay, go to school, speak the languages, get good grades, right? Play sports. And after that, people will just want you to come work for them. But you don't have control over recessions and economic things and other things outside of your control. I had racked up debt from those 2 college degrees and a pricey winery wedding in Northern California. And so I was depressed, broke, and I was desperate for any form of work. And so I went back to something that I knew and something that fortunately was still hiring. I began coaching high school girls volleyball. And for me, it was a really important thing for me to do. Despite this, advanced degree and this path before me of what I should be doing, I took a turn and I laughed. I got exercise. And I began to see potential in others that I stopped seeing in myself. I started really doubting my abilities. I doubted, had I done enough? And all of a sudden, I started to have just this more positive outlook that things would start to turn around. And they did. So Silicon Valley came calling finally in December of 2001. And I just took that very first job that I found. Volleyball season had ended, but Silicon Valley didn't want me to stay there. They wanted me to go back home to my roots in Reno, Nevada. So, every time you get this job offer, right, you do the pros and cons of what am I supposed to do? Is this the right thing for me? And, hey, it's working for a tech giant, Cisco Systems. This is great. And, all the sexy stuff college students love, salary, benefits, gotta love those things. I was going to get to use my degree in international finance, and I would be working on a global team where I would get to use all my language skills, French, Spanish, German, sometimes English, and potentially have the ability to travel soon. So all things I wanted, and that sounded great. But the cons list was equally long. Yes, it meant moving from Northern California back to my hometown of Reno, Nevada. There was no relocation budget, so with no money in my pocket, I had to find a way to get there. It was also working European hours, so that global part became a little less sexy because I was going to be working from 11 p.m. until 8 in the morning. And that meant I would spend my first year of marriage without seeing my husband. Kind of a tough way to get things going, but I took the plunge, and as you heard at the beginning, I ended up with a very storied career in Silicon Valley, but none of it was planned. I took the twists and turns as they came. And so I want you guys to kind of think about that as you're building out your syllabus for life, because it's not just about looking forward and randomly picking things. It's also looking back to remember what were the things that were important, what were those milestones in your life that made you really happy, that made you content, that fulfilled you. And volleyball was one of those things. And so then as I sat down in the next crisis, like many of us did, a lot of downtime in 2020, I began building my own syllabus for life. And I started reflecting on what did I learn and experience during these times? Where did this life take me? And it took me all over the place. 14 countries, 30 of the United States, 3 Canadian provinces, 2 in Mexico. I had seen a lot of the world, and I made friends everywhere I went. I'm a super extroverty extrovert, which was a benefit of actually going to all those schools. And I realized that was one of the hardest parts of the pandemic for me, is being inside. So as I started to reinvent myself, as I started to think about my next path forward, my next 30 days, my next 60 days, my next 90 days, I started to figure out what were these important pillars. And this is why I tell people to do this in a stream of consciousness way, not to write, again, a full dissertation, but just go through those emotional things of one word, two words, what's really resonating with you about the life you've had and what's important and what you want to continue to take with you as you go forward. And the most important part that I try to remind folks, especially young students and professionals as they're coming into the workforce, but at any of these times of transition, you are the teacher and the student of your life. So like we said, when you go to that college syllabus, there's a due date for the coursework, there's dates for those major exams, you know when you need to study. But when are your life exams? No one here is grading your life except you. And if there are people in your life grading you, they're not here to support you. So you need to find people that actually will. But you need to start to understand when those milestones are going to come. So that way you can make sure that you are ready for those times of pivot, at least the ones you can control and predict. The other thing is grading. So if you are grading your life, what is important to you? The professor would tell you, oh, you're going to go A to F, 1 to 10, you get points for this, points for that, and maybe we'll drop the top 10% or 5% because of a curve. When you look at your syllabus for life and you look about the goals you want to set for yourself for the next, maybe 30 to 60 days forward, how do you know when you will have accomplished your goals? When will you have enough? And I use this word enough specifically because it really does tend to resonate with people as, well, what's enough travel? What's enough friends? What's enough, kids? Like there are specific numbers for some of these, and some of them are just, a little bit more of a feeling when I feel happy, when I feel like, my week is filled and I get to see different people. For me, traveling was always important. So for me, there was specific goals around how many countries I wanted to see each year or month or, whatever was coming on the travel schedule. So as I started to grade my life exam for 2020, I really sat down for the first couple of months after I quit my corporate job. I was experiencing bullying, funny enough, so this all becomes a catalyst in a big circle, as many of us also see. But what experiences really helped me achieve my biggest goals in my career and the things that made me happiest in life? And funny enough, it wasn't the things I thought they were going to be. It wasn't the promotions or more money or bigger place to live. Or I wrote about it and I journaled. And one of the stories I talk about is the Golden Microphone Award. I won an award at work for getting my entire global team to do a lip sync contest. Completely ridiculous, silly, and fun. But it brought us together as a team and showcased me in a leader that I could do things differently than other people had done them. That it wasn't just about the work that made a difference, but it was about the people and the way that we connected, regardless of time zones, culture, and any other kinds of geography or things keeping us apart. And the milestones, like I said, travel was incredibly important. And I realized each year I had set milestones for what new states in the US I wanted to go to, what new countries, maybe that was personal travel, maybe it was for work. But those travel things were always very big milestones within my life, looking forward to those trips and the people I would be traveling with, both for work and for pleasure with my friends and family. So what stands out about the life that you want, and how is it different from your friends and family? How are you making your own life exam as you go forward? So we won't have time to do the full exercise, obviously, for the syllabus for life, but here are just a couple of other questions that continue through the exercises as you write down these kind of bits and pieces of words and goals and how you connect them all together. The biggest piece is emotionally connecting to your goal. You can feel it, you can hear it when I talk about these things, how passionate I am about them. And that was the difference. My career was a way to get these things. It wasn't itself important. There was never like, oh man, I love making T accounts in accounting, or this spreadsheet is really sexy. None of those things happened, right? Yes, sometimes work is fulfilling and we like being challenged and we like getting, reward, but emotionally connecting to the goals you want to achieve. Otherwise, I would have never run 7 marathons and done triathlons in many states and countries. Emotionally connecting to difficult things is how we make sure we stick to it. and who's going to be your cheerleader. Definitely, as I started running marathons, I learned this very quickly. I learned that if I just talked about running all the time, most people did not care. If they weren't runners, it's not interesting to them. You can have cheerleaders who will cheer you on, and they have no interest in what you're doing, but they're happy for you. And then you can have mentors who have been where you've been or are going through the same thing you're going through, and the mentors will be there step by step. So know the difference between your cheerleaders who will be in your corner, no matter whether they understand what you're doing or not, and your mentors who are there to collaborate and teach you along the way. Those are definitely your chameleons, which you want to keep in your community. And then how will you enjoy time off? We always make goals on like productivity and how much I'm going to do and checking things off the list. But one of the things I also like to remind people, including myself, is make sure you have time to cycle off. And who are you going to cycle off with? Is there friends? Are your kids? Like, what makes you laugh? What makes you really chill out? And who doesn't, amp you up, but can just help you decompress after maybe some of the stress of trying to achieve these goals? These things I feel are equally important to say. And I don't like saying work-life balance. I like saying harmony, finding harmony between the two to make sure that they're always a yin and yang between the things you are trying to achieve in your life. Well, believe it or not, that's all for today, kids. I would love to talk about Chameleon Mindset forever and ever. There is so much more to Chameleon Mindset than just this. We've only really scratched the surface of really working on the syllabus for life, which is part of the law of attraction pillar in this philosophy. If you haven't done so already, please connect with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this presentation over email, DM, and social media. You can set up time to meet and definitely check out the podcast and listen to our other members of Leadership Global. So you can scan the QR code, you can go to the nikkigreen360.com, and you'll be able to catch all of my links right there. And last but not least, of course, I have to leave you with a gift. I'm very excited to say that Chameleon Mindset is now not only in paperback, hardcover, ebook, all of the wonderful things, including an audiobook with my beautiful narration. We are launching an online course. And so if maybe you'd like to do a more interactive version of the syllabus for life and learn about the 360-degree view of Chameleon Mindset, I'm going to give everyone here today one free module, and you guys will start with risk tolerance and the maze exercise.